Gonna try to get the merch in there. All right. We're back with another episode. First, the sponsors. Head over to the website, johnbartoloshow.com. There's a complete list of the sponsors there. I want to thank a few of them now. Special shout out to Sig's Hour. Go buy a Sig. Right On Optics, Volquartz, Secure It, Rhino Metals, Pulsar Thermal Imaging Technology, Galco Leather Holsters, Howler Head. Go drink some booze. Why not Dana's? I want to thank all the sponsors. A complete list of them down below, and I know Eric will share a lot of them in the chat. Guys, support the show by supporting the sponsors. I got a special guest today. We've done the dance trying to get him on, so he's the most interesting man in the world. No, we've done the dance. We train at the same gyms. We're around the same people. It's long overdue. We got the owner. I'm right in saying that. The owner of Iridium Sports Agency.
Yes, sir.
The one and only Jason House.
How's it going?
How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me,
bro. It's a pleasure. So let's dive right in. First, I want to get to why the hell you even started a sports agency in the first place in this crazy sport, because who gets into this, right? It's certainly in the beginning, probably not for the money. It's you got to love the sport, which I know you do. So what made you get into this, and what were you thinking?
I'd finished playing college baseball in 2006. And so I started law school that next semester. And in law school, I kind of just missed the camaraderie of hanging with the guys and just being a part of something. So I started doing jiu-jitsu with Jiva Santana at Team Oyama. And that really got my interest in MMA. That's when I really started falling in love with it. But to be honest with you, it wasn't until 2 years later that a sports agent came and spoke to my school that actually was representing MMA fighters. And that was the last semester of law school for me. And I was kind of in a pinch where I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my life yet. And that's kind of scary. 7 years of school and you don't know what the heck you're going to do. A bunch of Sally Mae debt. And so, I called them, started interning, and the light bulb went off.
Yeah. What year was this? I'm curious. How ahead of the curve were you, or were you right on it?
So I started interning for him in December of 2008. I remember my first UFC was that December, like that New Year's Eve card.
Yeah. So people got to understand perspective. 08 was still very virgin territory for these promotions like this. It was very ragtag. I mean, when you first slid into it, obviously you look at the NFL and MLB and other areas. What made you hyper focus on the fight game, and did you think it would get to where it is today? Obviously doing jiu-jitsu helps, but man, you took a gamble in so many ways.
Yeah. My initial love for it came from the fact that you had to be so hands-on with the athlete. My first UFC event that I worked, I saw that, like, we're there, we're training with them, we're cutting weight with them. I'm like, this is amazing. This is what I'm supposed to be doing in life. And as I got into it more and more, I think I realized you can have a market share in MMA because the sport was so young. Right?
Yeah.
To get into NFL, to get MLB, you're going to be competing against people that have been in that business for 20, 30 years. And rightfully so. Entry, yeah. So that kind of dawned on me later, but initially it was just love and passion that I just thought, wow, this is the greatest sport in the world. The fighters are amazing. I could do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's looking at the time frame, like 08, to give everybody perspective, the biggest fight promotions weren't what they are today.
No,
they really were not. And the biggest athletes were not. And they weren't making a ton of dough back then. And people think they're not making money now. They definitely weren't making it then. It was very ragtag. I can imagine you got to see a lot of guys through that time period grow and develop into some superstars. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? I mean, that's crazy. 08.
Yeah. I mean, that time period, Affliction was coming on and doing events. HCNet Fights was doing events. Strikeforce was still a player in the business at that point. So Dream in Japan, it was a very different market. And I think then, the UFC was doing, not even close to as many shows as they're doing now at the time.
Yeah, it wasn't what it is now. To give everybody perspective, go back and watch UFC old tapes and just YouTube it and you'll see it. Now you get into this, at what point do you realize you have something that having an agent in this space is a viable business model and makes sense? At what point are you like the light bulb goes off and you don't just love it, but it can be a business?
I think 2011 when I got my first athlete in the UFC, and that was also the same year that the Fox sports deal happened with the UFC, so they increased their shows, and that started to give me some light. I'll be honest with you, up until that point, there were times I wanted to quit. It was getting very
Imagine.
hard for me. You know, it's hard when your friends from law school, they're driving nice cars, they have condos in Newport Beach. I'm living at home. I'm working at Outback Steakhouse as an attorney. It's pretty rough. And when I got the first athlete in the UFC, Ruben Duran, I felt like that was just...
We did it.
We did it. I mean, I was like the greatest day of my life. He ended up performing amazingly, and then it just started steamrolling, right? Ian McCall, Bobby Green, Shane De Rosario, Eddie Yoggin, Cisco Rivera. The list just kept growing, and I felt like, okay, I'm in now. I can do this.
Now, take me through what it's like when you sit with a fighter. Give me the commercial. Take me through what it's like, because I've had friends obviously play in NFL and Major League Baseball, and we've all seen that. But it's a different experience. Like you said, you're cutting weight. You're living with these people. Take me through what an experience with an athlete that you take on looks like, and help me understand how you're going to get them to the next level where management starts to come in, because you don't need a manager your first amateur fight. You know, take me through what that looks like and what you look for.
It's funny you say that. So I'll take you through like Alex Perez, right? He's a top 5 flyweight in the world right now. We signed him before his pro debut. So we started, you know, Jeremy and I started developing him at Tachi Palace Fights, getting him the right fights, building him up. When I got my first apartment in Southern California, he moved in with me so he could start training at some of the bigger gyms down there. When I got my first home, he moved in with me. Before that, he was living with Jeremy for a long time. And so you're really investing early with him. You know, all these random events, right? Tachi Palace Fights. We fought at RFA. We fought at CFFC. He fought at a couple local events I don't think are even in business anymore. So you're kind of just taking the right fights, getting him the right training, building him up. And it wasn't until, I think his pro debut was May of 2011 or August 2011. And then he didn't get to the UFC until the summer of 2017. So you got to think that's 6 years of grinding someone on the regional
scene. And for
scene.
you grinding, you know, to make it happen. Now people don't ever see that side of it, but not every fighter's like that. You know, ideally, what do you suggest when they start to look for management? What's usually the first? I want to understand, like, do you come across someone? Is it something you see? Is it more personality? Is it gimmick? Is it talent? Is it a mixture of all the two? When someone should start to seek that? I mean, I guess it's a double loaded question, right? Like, what do you look for versus when should they look for it?
The first part of the question, what do I look for?
Yeah.
You know, I learned at a very young age that talent will take you places your character's not ready to go to.
Ooh.
I really try to look for high character athletes, high character people. If you think about it, if they fought 4 times a year, that's only 1 hour they would spend in the actual cage. What they're doing outside of that cage every minute of the day is really going to determine not only their success, but our success as well. So having a high character athlete is very important. You know, when I meet with them, I really like, hey, tell me about your life. Start from birth. Tell me what's going on. And you can really learn a lot about someone and what they've been through in life. And that helps me to better serve them. The second part of your question is when they should
start to looking,
I think it's changed in the last 2 or 3 years because of Contender Series. Contender Series now, the fighters are usually 5 or 6-0. It's a little earlier than usual when they're getting their shot to fight in front of Dana. So I think it's better for an athlete to sign with an agent earlier. So you kind of build that rapport. Like you said, you kind of know how they cut weight. Do they use the bathtub? Do they want the sauna? You know how they are in fight week, which family members you need to take care of. And you just start finding these little nuances about the athlete so that you can be extra detailed for them. So as the fights get bigger in the UFC, it's like a smooth rolling machine, right? You just know every little detail. They like to eat at this restaurant. I need a private room for them. And you just kind of know how to service them, because I truly believe the fight week energy is everything. I believe the fight week's going good. You can kind of tell, like, oh man, he's firing all cylinders. We're going to do well this weekend.
Yeah, it's a lot, man. It's like an interview process in both sides. And that's like the stuff nobody ever really wants to talk about. It really is. And character does have to be tremendously important with anybody who's going to be in a spotlight, period.
Yep.
You know, beyond it being a pro circuit or anything like that. Now, again, you know, Contender Series opens up a lot of ideas, and you brought up a key point, gets people in front of Dana. You know, I want to be clear. Everybody knows I love the UFC. Now, there's a lot of promotions out there, and there's a lot of promotions you work with. And how do you determine who fits what promotion the best? Is it just based on the contract, or do you feel that somebody might just be better in a better space? You know, not to say, you know, like the NBA, like D-League, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with how do you determine what's the best space for them as they come up?
It's really different strokes for different folks. You kind of have to take it by a case-by-case situation, understand the athlete's goals, their age, what they're looking to get out of the sport and the business. I have some athletes that have been in Bellator, such as Brent Primus, who was a former champ there, who was there from them since I think his second pro fight on, and has had a lot of success there. Henry Corrales is another one that comes to mind that's had a long run in Bellator. I think this is year 7 with them. So, I have athletes in 1FC like Loan Tainenez. I've had athletes in Risen. So it really just kind of where the shoe fits. And I think as a manager, it's your duty to explore all the options for the athlete and understand where they may be best suited and where they can have the most success and prosperity for their families.
And you're taking some of what they want into account, obviously. Yeah. So there's a component of, I'm going to give you advice, but you could take it, not take it, but I'll help you carve out the best path. There's that component.
100%. And that's, I think sometimes as management, we listen to respond. We don't listen to learn. And I feel like you really need to listen to learn to understand your athlete. And then that's going to really help you better service them and care for them. Because at the end of the day, it's not about me. When they're happy and they're 40 years old and they're retired and they have a nice home and a beautiful wife or husband, depending on
the situation,
and everything is good, that's what makes me happy. Seeing my male clients have success in their later lives.
Speaking of husband, wife, I gotta tell you, I thought about this. I've talked about this with some of your fighters and some of the fighters. I'm dying to get Dana on. I'm gonna get his take on it. I'm pushing for this. I'm all for the transgender thing. I say give them their own division and let's fucking sign them up and let's have a division and let them fight it out in their own division. Where do you stand on signing it? I mean, would you not sign a transgender? But I say they need a division. I'll buy that pay-per-view, Jason. I'll buy that.
You know what? For me, I don't have enough information on the science of that whole situation, but I'm all for equality. If they want to have their own division, if they want to compete in professional sports, I definitely feel I'm open to all of it. My first and foremost concern is just fighter safety and just ensuring that we're making an equal playing field. I feel like the sport's done a great job with USADA coming in and drug testing and making sure everything is fair. Like I said, I don't have enough information scientifically on that. I know there's a situation with Combate where a transgender fighter really took a lot of heat for the way that fight turned out. But again,
hey, listen, if you want to put your neck on the line in your own division, that's why I say give them a division.
Yeah.
At least let everybody know what they're getting into. Hey, you want to identify as a male? Identify as a male. You want to identify? We're going to have the transgender division. Catch weight. But I'd buy that pay-per-view, wouldn't you? 100%.
No, like I said, I'm all for the equality. I'm all for everyone getting their opportunity to compete in professional sports.
Bring it on, I say. Sign them up. Contact Iridium Sports Agency if you're out there. I think that too many things get overthought, and I think one of the benefits of working with guys like Dana and the way he's consolidated it is you look at things very simply. There's a lot of simple solutions to complex problems. And I think that people can get to the best outcome no matter what. So whether it's transgender athletes, what's working with somebody in a different weight class, moving them, I would think that the UFC, having the PI now helps with a lot of that and sorting a lot of that out. And how has the PI worked with you? And do you love working with them?
They're amazing. It's been a game changer, I think, for the sport. When you have their nutrition help, their physical therapy, the strength conditioning, the ability to train there. They just provide so many benefits to the athlete right now. And I think it's helping us to evolve as a professional sport.
I think one of the struggles, Jason, people have to understand, and we'll stem into the pay thing, but I think one of the struggles that I think they don't get is the UFC and professional fighting is still very young. Yes. And it's going to take a lot of time. I think everybody wants to get there. I have no doubt that you want to cash $1 million checks every weekend. I have no doubt that you want your athletes to cash $1 million checks every weekend. And I have no doubt that eventually they want to get to this place where they have healthcare or they have these things. It's whether or not, what time frame that's going to take. How long did it take the NFL? How long did it take NHL? It takes time.
You nailed it on the head. And that's one example that I use a lot. If you look at where baseball was 27, 28 years in, I think a lot of the players are still working winter jobs. If you look at football, 27, 28 years in, NBA, a lot of these sports had a lot of growing pains as well. So for me, that's how I try to look at where our sport's at. I think sometimes it's very easy to look at the micro and not the macro of the whole situation. And I agree with you. I think, look at our sport, look how far we've come in a short period of time. Look another 20, 25 years. It's going to be amazing. I'm excited for it.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's definitely reaching a place where you can start to have those conversations. The fighter pay thing to me, and help me understand fighter pay, not necessarily as it pertains to UFC versus boxing, which are all totally different things, and people know that. I think people have to understand too, it's one part, you're negotiating in a pool of so many people and so much talent that, it's not the easiest thing in the world to say, well, this guy for the next 10 fights is worth this. How do you navigate that with not just your athletes, but even with the promotion?
I think it's a case-by-case basis. And I think as long as you communicate well with the promotion, you usually have a lot of success. I think for me, I like when those situations occur where it's kind of, everyone's ascent or descent is different, correct?
Right.
And so you kind of have to work well with the promotion to make sure that every fight, the fighter is getting his value. Me personally, I feel like as long as you have those conversations and you over-communicate with the promotion, I haven't had any issues.
Yeah. I think I think that I see it, it's funny because I don't want to, I've had off the record conversations with people in the UFC, and I understand this. And look, people have to understand they're trying to build a machine, and it is, some of these promotions are some great marketing machines for these people too. And I think that's what's starting to come into play, Jason, that people have to understand. Do you want to be a part of New Kids on the Block or whatever it is? You know what I'm saying? And not to call the UFC that, but or any fight promotion, but when you join a band, it's you're giving something to get something, to be a part of a greater pool. And I see that. I'm an advocate for both sides, and I want to see both sides win, as I know every side does. But it's not something that's cut and dry. Like you said, it's a case-by-case basis, and everyone's going to have a different want and a different desire. But the ability to parlay that after it has never been greater than it is right now. And I think that creates tremendous opportunity. Do you try to work with fighters ongoing even after they're done?
Yes, I really try to help them kind of segue into that next chapter of their life. In fact, one of the opening discussions I always have with our athletes as they're signing and onboarding with us is, hey, listen, this is plan A for you. And I'm fully dived in on plan A with you, but we need to focus on getting plan B going and off its feet, getting the ball rolling, because the truth of the matter is, if you fought till 40 years old, which is, I feel, a long career, you still have half your life to live. And I want you to find your secondary purpose in life after fighting. I want you to find your happiness after fighting, because many times in professional sports, athletes struggle post-retirement.
Yeah.
Right? They struggle because they have identified, I'm a football player. Now, when you're no longer a football player, you don't know really your place in this world. And so we really try to help our athletes kind of understand that and find their rhythm for life after fighting. I
know a guy who managed a very, very successful bodybuilder. Okay. And he was uber successful, won an enormous amount of Olympias, if people can read between the lines. And I know for a fact that manager took his last Olympia win check and paid off his house. He was like, if we don't pay off your house, you're going to be in trouble. And he made sure. And, management takes different forms with different people. Some people are very organized, have their shit together. They're either family people, or they buy and pay for their house. They create a base. And then some people never get that B off the ground. And I think that's one of the struggles. And now there's really no excuse, right? You got to get something going that's not just what you make in the ring. I would think now more than ever, right? I would think. Correct. And I'm constantly trying to find the right circles for my athletes to be put into, right? I know what I don't know. And I know they're specialists in certain areas of life, to financial management and financial advising. And so I really try to help our athletes get into those circles, like you said, so that they're finding secondary and third incomes that can really help them just enjoy life. So maybe you don't have to fight. Does that make sense? We're fighting because we enjoy it, not because, I need one more paycheck real quick, or we're always doing something to no longer do it, right?
Exactly.
We're always doing something that makes no sense, but it should make all the sense in the world. Now, it's exciting to be in a sport I liken the fight game to NASCAR, because the access that you get to the athletes and how close you can be to the ground level. And you brought this up, you can literally meet half these guys by going to an open mat. We know that, so that's one of the exciting things about being in that game, being in the fight game. Is that something that draws not just the fans, but also potentially has drawn more agents in over the years and more people in? I would think that it has, because you have the ability to get so hands-on. If you're just an actor, you have a PR person, you have an agent, you have this, you have that, you have something for everything. Here you get to get really into it at the ground level, and that's obviously probably brought in its share of competition. How has that been, seeing that growth?
I definitely think the management space has grown tremendously over the last 5 or 6 years. For me, I love it. I think competition is good. I think the Yankees need the Red Sox.
Yeah, of course.
The Lakers need the Celtics. And I look forward to it. For me, I'm trying to play the infinite game here. And, I'm constantly learning and evolving from others and even my competition because of course that's what's necessary for success.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to do, to humble yourself for a minute. Like I look at other podcasts, other media guys, and I'm like, I have to pay attention. If I don't, I'm not doing my job. I'm like, I have to see what they're doing, how they're operating. Now, I imagine in that space, there are guys that want to go it alone. What do you say to the fighter that says, I'm not going to use anybody?
I think my initial response is that there's going to be some area of your career that's going to suffer because there's only so many hours in a day. If you're spending all your time training, you're being reactive to fight offers, you're being reactive to sponsorships or marketing or PR, where you need to be proactive. You need someone that's constantly going out there and getting these opportunities for you. Because I think a lot of times in our industry, if you're reactive, you're kind of getting what's left over, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. And I think it's good advice. I think people have to understand that, if you're not putting yourself out there, plus now the competition, there's every division has 5 or 8 guys that, could be very good. Like I look at it from my industry, and when I see guys like Cody Stamen, certain people, I'm like, you guys would kill it in the gun industry. It's finding these other industries. It's developing these other paths, and it's developing these other relationships, but they're not conventional, some of them, and they take time. And people have to understand, if you're not proactively looking for it, it's not going to happen. Even if it's the fighter not being proactive and saying like, these are brands I want to work with. Yeah. And that's feedback that you have to take. And then you form the strategic relationship and you figure out if there's something there. And sometimes there just isn't something there. And I even have to explain that to people. I'm like, listen, it's not a brand that plays ball. There's only going to be so much, and we see that come and go, and it's hard to understand. Is it better when the athlete comes to you with ideas, or is it better when you're just shaping them for them, or it depends on the case?
I think it's best when the athlete comes with ideas, because a lot of times they're passionate about those ideas, and I want them to do things that they're passionate about. I don't want them to become like robots per se, or to do things out of necessity that they don't enjoy. My goal is for all of our clients to do things that they love to do and to work with other brands and people that they love. I think when you can do that, you create a lot of fun. And like for you, for example, you work with a lot of people you love and like. And so you're not really working for say, because you're hanging out with the people that you'd hang out with if there wasn't a business opportunity involved.
100%.
And that's what I really desire for our clientele.
Yeah. If it makes money, it makes sense. And we say this all the time on the show, it has to make sense. You can have a love for a product or a brand and want to do something with them and say, hey, let's see where it goes. You could take a flyer, but you have to know going in that it's a flyer. Yeah. It's like, let's see what happens. There's something here. I don't know what. And a lot of times with bigger brands, you'll have to do that a little bit. Like, let's see if this is something that gels. And there's a lot of trial and error, especially if, like you said, you're on the receiving end. You're kind of more taking what the universe gives you. If you're going out and proactively saying, geez, I like to drink, I want, Budweiser as a sponsor, but I drink beers every day, then it fits and it makes a little more sense. Now, is Budweiser going to call you and offer you $1 million tomorrow? Probably not. You have to develop into that and grow into that and fit their marketing, because they're looking for something very specific and very tailored. Yep. And that's what people have to understand. Now, I got to ask, you have a large roster of athletes. How do you balance all the athletes? What's the best system you found?
The best system I found is
the Jerry Maguire answer.
Yes, it is. What I've done is I've been able to grow internally so that we can handle the growth externally. I have a great team here at the agency. We have over, I think we're almost at a dozen people now here at the agency. Oh, nice. And that allows us to just really allows me to focus on the athletes and the clientele and respond and talk to them on a daily basis. I think we've kind of done things differently. I think some agencies are kind of pyramidish in the sense that maybe you would deal with one junior agent or one agent, and there's other people in the background that maybe you don't have a relationship or talk to daily. I believe that no one should ever be speaking on your behalf that you don't speak to. And so we're very linear in the sense that, like I have Jacob who just does his marketing, right? So you talk to him about your marketing. Yeah, I have Ed who just does PR, and you talk to him about your PR. Lance does all the legal work for us. You talk to him about any legal work. Jeremy handles the regional scene and the back end office work. Joe handles a region for us, Joe Hooster, and we have Raul Arvizu in Mexico handles the Latin American clientele. So we kind of have people that are specialists in every area that really allow us to thrive.
That's a super good way to do it in so many ways. I think a lot of people try to focus on a ratio. you know, where it's like we have 20 people for our 100 athletes, you know what I mean? And I'm not necessarily sure that that's because there's working hard and then there's working smart. And just because you're working doesn't mean, just because you're busy doesn't mean you're working.
Exactly. It's working smarter, not harder. It's being very efficient with our time. You know, we had a big team meeting this week, and even just efficiency on the back end office side, working on some new things technology wise that I think will make us very efficient. Just because, you know, with COVID, you need, you know, vaccination cards, you have certain medicals now, and just having all that on a database just to be so efficient and timely and helping all these promotions. You know.
I have some friends in this game, and I've been talking to them. One of the things that they're getting obsessed with is developing a person internally that can help their athletes not just get into other avenues of making money, but other avenues that can advertise for them, like Twitch and streaming and other spaces. Are these things you guys looking at more progressive, cutting edge stuff all the time, or is it something that you guys table and talk about in meetings to try to get these guys into different areas, or maybe look at other things? Because obviously with the fucking spurt of OnlyFans and everybody jumping on that, you know, people are looking at all these other streams. Is that something you ever want to build into your packages?
Yes, we're constantly looking to evolve in every area. You have to be. The sport, like we just were talking about earlier, the sport is so young, and we're in a day in technology where it's constantly evolving, right? Especially in the social media markets, like OnlyFans and some in TikTok and all these new opportunities.
Everything.
And so you constantly have to have these meetings, and you're discussing it, how it can benefit us, how it can maybe hurt us, certain, you know, content, and constantly making sure that we're doing things for the up and up for our athlete.
Yeah. I mean, one of my friends gets a call one day and he's in Call of Duty, you know, he's in a video game. Perfect. And it's like, who represents that and how do you capitalize on that? You know, people don't know. We're in such new territory. Like NFTs are becoming all the rage. Everybody wants to get into the NFT game. I imagine it's only a matter of time, but sports agencies before you have an NFT guy, you know what I mean? That can help facilitate that.
100%. And again, that's educating yourself on the NFT market, making sure you have a fully understanding of it and comprehension of it, and then entering it and making sure that you're putting your athletes in the best position to be successful in that market.
It's so much juggling. It's a lot. You know, you're in charge of these people's lives. Now, when you go into a negotiation, like take me through, and I know you can't speak to it, what like some of these scenarios, like you see the Conor, you know, fighting Mayweather, and we hear about Francis fighting, you know, professional boxers potentially fighting, you know, the Gypsy King. We don't know that that's going to happen, right? But when that stuff starts to happen, how do you determine as an agent, like I'm going to be their agent first, or I'm going to be loyal to the promotion or whatever promotion that is that's coming at them? How does something like that get sifted through that opportunity? I mean, I have no idea. Where do you even fucking begin?
I think first and foremost, your loyalty is always towards the athlete, because that is your client. But secondly, I do feel there's a way of doing good business and keeping it behind closed doors and having those negotiations and pushing hard for your client while still maintaining a respectable relationship with that promotion. I think sometimes in our day and age, too many times there's athletes or management that's negotiating in public, and I just don't feel like that is the best route to go. I never feels like anything. I mean, that's any relationship in life, though, right? I mean, I feel like this is common sense. You know, don't air out your laundry in your marriage. Don't air out your laundry in friendships. You know, keep it behind closed doors. Keep it respectable. And I think usually when you do that, cooler heads can prevail. And
good advice.
And I feel like if you look at Conor McGregor and his team, and you know the promotion, you know, UFC that they've worked with, and to do some of the outside the UFC stuff that they've done, like the fight Mayweather, I feel like they've always come to great terms with each other, and I feel like we've never heard about it publicly, right? I think they've just done it.
You're so right in the idea of keeping it respectable between both parties. Yes. And there's something that lawyers talk a lot about. I read a lawyer book once. I think it was Law for Dummies. You know, you have to maintain a certain decorum, you know, throughout the process. You can still push hard, you can still negotiate, but you have to maintain some level of decorum. And that's something that gets lost on people, especially at the negotiating table, because either ego or emotion start to play into it and it falls apart. And we see that so often. The best deals are the deals you never hear about falling apart.
Yeah, agreed.
100%. Those are the best deals. Now, when it doesn't go an athlete's way, is there a way you have of explaining it or breaking it down or seeing the glass half full or potentially painting a different picture for them? Or is that something that's like you have to reconstruct a plan, you know, like you said, A and B? How hard is it to tell an athlete like, hey, maybe that opportunity didn't work out, you know, we can look at this? Is that something that's difficult to do or depends on the client? How does that shake out when someone doesn't get what they want?
I think initially the key is, and this goes back to signing athletes young, is that we're not giving them opportunities or giving them fish for say. We're teaching them how to fish. We're teaching them how to get opportunities. So as they grow into the sport, as they have those opportunities, going into that, say, negotiation, they would know that option C, which you're describing is maybe what we didn't want, is a possibility. And we have to,
preemptive.
See the macro before we head into that negotiation, so we don't get lost in the micro of only what we want. We have to explore all the possibilities and understand, hey, if it does fall down this road, are we willing to go down that path, or do we want to segue somewhere else?
Well, and it's the art of the deal too, Jason. People have to understand, Trump literally wrote the book on this. Say what you want about him. Both sides got to win.
Yes.
Both sides have to always leave the table feeling like they won.
Correct.
So there'll always be a concession and an ask. You know what I mean? It's like, I want $1 million. Well, what are you going to do? You know, it's what's the concession? So, you know, people have to understand that. And if you're not willing to go in with the principles of the art of the deal, you shouldn't go in the first place.
100%. And that's one of my golden rules. And anyone that's ever worked in my agency, I make them read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence Others, because I think too many times we go in saying what we want instead of asking like, hey, how can we help your business? How can we serve you better? And then naturally we're going to get what we want. And I think that's made a world of difference for our agency. Like you said, they feel like they're getting what they are, not that they feel it, but they are getting what they want, right? And I feel good because I'm getting what I want. We both win, and we're both getting service for what we needed.
I tell everybody, even the athletes that come in here, I tell them, I say, read Never Eat Alone. And if you want a good to understand business, when you get older, and I've looked every athlete in the eye and said this, when you get older, it's not what company you want to do business with, it's who. Yes. Because you start to know all the players. So, you know, like I gave someone advice the other day that recently just started working in the UFC, a certain high profile fighter. I told her, I said, you should never eat lunch with the same person while you're in here.
Smart.
Learn every iteration of this program and what they're trying to do here. And that will serve you later, whether you want to run a promotion, whether you never want to run a promotion again, whether you want to do something, but learn every single job. And then you'll understand the goal and what you're trying to do, the context of the whole thing. And you might find that you hate it. And sometimes that answers a question.
No, that's so smart. You know, eating lunch with different people, learning different areas of the business. It's kind of like, like certain restaurants, you have to work in every section of the restaurant before you own the restaurant, so you can fully understand it. I completely agree. I think that's the only way you can constantly learn and evolve. And I think you're right. If you put yourself in someone else's shoes in different parts of that company, you'll learn how that company functions better.
Now we're seeing the evolution of obviously how fighters are managed and how management goes. I think it goes without saying, and I want to get you on the record. I mean, it's not just UFC. We all want more fighter pay in the end, right? I mean, that's the end goal. We all want more fighter pay. It's not just singular to one promotion, but I try to break it down to people like not all promotions are created equally in so many ways. So it's very difficult to sort through that, but you're for more fighter pay. I mean, that's a logical thing to put out there, right? I mean, I think everybody's for that. What the economics dictate is different than maybe what you want always. But I think a lot of people have put an undue pressure on Dana and on the fight game in general by saying, you know, it needs to be equivalent to what you can't compare. Am I right in saying that?
Compare to boxing?
Yeah, like you can't compare it.
No, I had someone ask me this question the other day, and I really feel boxing's apples and oranges. It's just a different market. The UFC is kind of functioning more like a league. You know, there's different councils in boxing that kind of bid for fights and kind of they have a different structure.
It's a whole different
structure. So you can't really compare the two. And I think you're correct. A lot of times I feel because the UFC is the premier league in the world right now, they get a lot of the heat for fighter pay, but fighter pay is an issue
across. I don't think it's a UFC, but I think when he gets the heat on the podium, I don't, and I've said that I don't get it, because to me, it's like, why don't you go at El Combate? Why don't you go at, 100%. You can play that game all day.
It's an industry issue. And of course, listen, every person in every job in the world wants more pay.
I mean,
I think that's common knowledge. So you're 100% right in that sometimes I feel it does just fall on Dana and the UFC when it's really, there's a lot of organizations in the world that are up there with the premier leagues and the fighters know this. I mean, if you think for 1 second there's not a promotion guy running out the back door with a bag of cash every event, of course there is. Of course, like, duh. How many of you guys have been stiffed, and how many? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of problems out there in that game as it cleans itself out. You know, and eventually maybe, you know, as the fight councils, you know, that govern a lot of the states, everything, get more involved, and they have been the last 10, 15 years, but as they get their claws in, a lot less of that will happen, you know, in sanctioning and everything else, and that's all a sticky area too, what gets sanctioned and what doesn't. Are you excited that the UFC will be traveling again? It's starting to. After March. Yes.
Start moving around again.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it, excited to see the world again. It's been nice being planted here in Vegas for a bit, but I'm always excited to go to different markets. You know, going to Houston and Phoenix and New York over the past few months is amazing. I mean,
It's great for the fighters too.
Madison Square Garden was unbelievable. I mean, there's like a special aura in that arena.
I mean, I think it's always like, look, I think it was, we all said this, and every fighter I probably interviewed, it was weird when there were no fans. It's better now, and I do think keeping one of the fights, like one of the weekends in Vegas, will serve them well. Like, I think he's got a good thing going with that, the way he has that set up. But I think traveling opens a lot more opportunity, a lot more doors, a lot more exposure. And I think getting it a little bit on the road as we go post-COVID now, it's a little bit better. And I think it'll work out better. And, for you, it has to be a value add too when the league travels, because obviously you get more eyeballs on.
Correct.
If it's at the street level.
Like when Bobby Green was, on deck to walk out in Houston, like the crowd's Bobby. And it was great to hear that, because it's been a while since you've had crowds, and now we got the crowds back, and to see their energy and their excitement. The fans are part of the experience. They're part of the event and part of the fight. And it's great to have them back.
Do you find a majority of them like it better when it's like, I'm fighting in Vegas, or their hometown? What do they prefer usually? I never asked that.
It's funny that it's a really good question you asked that. Some of my clients like the seclusion of going to Vegas. No one can enter the hotel, kind of just with your team only.
The process.
No fans, just really stick to the process. Some of my clients are like, hey, Jay, can you talk to the UFC? I really want to go to an event with crowds. I want to compete on that. They love the whole experience, the open hotel, so with the fans waiting there to sign autographs. So it's different for each athlete.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me, because some of them, I've never asked someone like you that question that has a field of multiple athletes, but when I ask them one-on-one, they're always like, it's awesome to go home, but I love Vegas.
Yeah.
So it's like they're torn between the two.
Yeah.
It's like, or New York some of the major cities will pull a certain lever. But I have to imagine Vegas does rate slightly higher than maybe doing a promotion in the Dakotas.
To add to that, you brought up a good point. Vegas has some benefits to the athletes because of the PI, right?
Yeah.
They got the whole facility there, all the nutrition there, the physical therapy there. That makes a lot of difference, a huge difference in fight week. Plus, even being able to cut weight at the PI. So there is some big perks there to fighting in Vegas.
Do you think it's a good thing that they have the PI potentially going in multiple locations, or do you think fracturing it would be a risk?
I think it's good. I think it's going to do...
Well, they have 2 locations now, so I'm not letting the cat out of the bag too much, but he does have his eyes on others.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like it's doing very well in China. Obviously, I have a large portion of Latin American clients, and going to Mexico, I think, is going to be a great opportunity.
He's dying for that Mexico City.
Yes,
he's dying for that.
Yes, I mean, I'm excited to take Brandon Moreno back down there. And,
I think that'll be something.
Rock the place.
Yeah. Does it surprise you, Brendan, how successful he's been? Speaking of him, and what a draw he's been to that Mexican community. I mean, it's amazing, really. I mean, you couldn't have accounted for that. I mean, he's got such a righteous following.
When we signed Brandon, he was actually cut from the UFC.
Yeah,
they were cutting the flyweight division. Cheeto Vera called me and said, hey, I think Brandon's looking for management. And he was always my wife's favorite fighter that we didn't manage. She loves Brandon. Every fight. She's like, he's got such a great personality.
Great energy.
He does. And she used to say it, I think he fits your culture. He fits what your agency's about. And I'm like, yeah, babe, but he's probably has a manager and I don't want to be on the up and up. So when the opportunity came, I was just happy to work with him as a human being. If you would have told me all this was happening, I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought he was damn good of a fighter, and I definitely thought he can compete with the best in the world. But at the time the division was canceled, we were not thinking of titles. You're just thinking of keeping the division alive at that point in time.
Yeah, no, I imagine at that point, it's scary when a division looks like it's going to fold up. When you see that, is that something that, you have to sit down with each guy and you have to consider maybe a weight change, maybe a obvious, how does that work if they cut a division? Does the UFC allow them to escape their contract? How does that work? Or Bellator or anybody?
So what happened when they were cutting the flyweight division is they started releasing the fighters. So we had to put some fighters in different organizations. Alex Perez was able to move up to bantamweight and keep fighting there. Brandon got released. We took some time. Really, he went back to the drawing board, improved his game quite a bit, working in the gym. And then we took an LFA flyweight title fight, got a win there. And luckily, it was crazy. He fought at Casino Morongo in Southern California. He won on Friday. Saturday, he takes his daughters to Disneyland. Mick calls me and goes, hey, we're going to get the division back up. I want to sign Brandon back. So I call Brandon while he's at Disneyland and say, hey, brother, you're back in the UFC.
That's a great call.
It was an amazing phone call. And the thing I'm most proud of Brandon is that we're speaking of following and social media and building their brand. I think we're at almost 1.5 million following on Instagram, and we've built it organically. We've done it Brandon's just being Brandon. He's a fun-loving family guy who plays with Legos. That's that. We're not trying to change him or try to, I think that's why so many people are resonating with him, is that we've just kept him who he is.
Is it better when they're genuine? Now, both have their merits, so don't anybody misunderstand this.
Correct.
Is it better when they're themselves, or is it better when they have a gimmick, or what's the secret sauce of being good at both? Because obviously I know Colby. Obviously Covington comes to mind. You know what I mean?
Listen, ton of respect for Colby. Every time I met him, he's been nothing but a class act to me. To answer your question, I think only certain people can be so good personality-wise to give a gimmick. And Colby does it, right? So I think for those that can do it, it's great. I think people know what's going on and they enjoy it. It makes the sport fun and interesting. But I think to those, it's maybe they don't have, the desire or that whole shtick going on. Be yourself. Yeah. There's always people that are going to resonate with you. There's always people there's a certain portion of the world that look at you and like, man, that's my dude. That's my girl. Like I resonate with them.
Only certain people can pull off the flair. You know what I mean? They can pull off the Ric Flair like persona. Correct. It works for certain people, and it's better when you can back it up. Now, I want to ask you as an agent, I want to put you on the hot seat with this. Is it better having, where you're in combat sports and you're across the board, and this could be open to you, but guys like Gordon Ryan that people would die to see in the octagon, is how does that work? Do you think it's better that he's developing and growing grappling outside of the octagon, because that could be another avenue for agents to go into? Or do you want to see guys that people have a thirst for come into leagues? What's more advantageous and explosive for them?
There's two answers to this. Being someone that's grown
up, Gordon.
being someone that's grown up in grappling, I have a lot of respect for what Gordon Ryan has done in grappling, because it's put it on the map, and now people are very excited to watch grappling matches, grappling tournaments, and super fights. It's awesome. So in one aspect, I'm very happy to see the sport of grappling grow as much as it has. The second part is I always feel like jiu-jitsu, wrestling, boxing, kickboxing, it all leads to MMA, right? Like all those roads in my mind lead to MMA. So of course I want to see him
who doesn't?
In MMA, because that's the ultimate proving ground, right? I mean, that is why the UFC was created, is it's the ultimate proving ground. And you want to see these stars of different areas of combat sports come into this realm. So yes, I really would love it, but I'm also very grateful for what he's done, because like a side like Flow Grappling, or you see UFC Fight these amazing grappling events. I'm through the roof. I'm happy for it. I love it.
And I think it could potentially be a great retirement gig for some fighters, like
100%.
And that's where I see it going. 100%. And that's where I think, like I said, like just like the transgender thing, do a legacy fighters, match where it's like UFC legends versus maybe this, because in jiu-jitsu a lot of the athleticism equals out with a lot of the technique, and you start to get that sweet spot of like a 40-year-old guy can fucking murk a lot of people out on those mats. So it could be really, we know that because we're there, but we see it, and I think that could be compelling.
I think it's great. I think it allows a lot of these fighters that retire to keep those competitive juices going and fulfill
and make a buck,
like competing and make money, make an honest living doing it.
I think it's amazing. Now, where does it go from here for Iridium? What do you have your eyes on next, and what are the next steps, and how does the agency grow?
I think it's a twofold question. I mean, the first question is externally with our clients. It's continuing to serve and give to them and leave a legacy. One thing I really love about our business is that I'm a server and a giver, and it's great to see us being able to have a footprint in other people's lives and help their families grow. Seeing like a Brandon Moreno, and I'm picking his daughters up from school and seeing them, the lives they're living, and obviously their lives have improved tremendously, right? I mean, he's taken his economic standing tremendously skyrocketed, right, in the last year. So I'm happy for that. And then internally, I love growing my team and giving our team members opportunities to make a living in this industry like I wanted to do when I first started this business. And I think, just reading The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, I'm really looking forward to building a legacy brand and just having this company be a company that's just benefits others' lives and serves and gives and keeps being part of the evolution of the sport.
I think it's an amazing testament. Now, how you get it there is another story, right? The road there is always difficult, and it's rocky. But the growing pains can be fun if you can enjoy the process and if you can grow through the process. Now, eventually, we've always seen agencies kind of lurk a little bit in the background, and they let the stars be the stars, and they amplify them. As we enter into the kind of this new social media game, some of the fight managers, they're pretty well known in the circles, and we know who the big 4 or 5 players are. It's interesting how they market themselves. Do you see eventually some of these agencies marketing themselves a little bit more than maybe they had in the past?
I definitely do. For me, I think the biggest marketing I can have is just my clients' words.
Amen.
I think that they know that I'm there for them through thick and thin. That's your biggest calling card.
Amen. I think that's the most powerful thing, obviously, is word of mouth and developing that. But I think having them sing your praises and putting that out into the ether is obviously the most important and helps the most. Now, I want to ask you, let everybody know where they can find you, how they can reach you, and how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah. My social media handles is Jason K. House. That's a great way to reach out to me. Email is jhouse@iridiumsportsagency.com, and I try to respond to everybody.
Yeah, don't flood his DMs with, "Hey, I'm 1-0." I'm 1-0. Give me a shot. But though, I imagine you look at a lot of stuff because you're a student of the game, so you're probably looking at even the minutia.
Yes.
I imagine. So, is there anyone you've ever found on like social media or anything? Like, has anyone ever made a path that way yet?
Yes, there's actually been quite a few clients that I've met on social media that reached out to me that turned out to be amazing. I mean, we just signed Tatsuro Taira. He's an undefeated Japanese fighter that just signed with the UFC. And to be completely honest, one of his good friends, Naoka, she reached out to me and said, "Hey, one of my colleagues is looking for a management." And we never met. We met strictly through online. And now, now he's been in Vegas and we've met, obviously, but at the time it was strictly a social media interaction.
Now, the $1 million question on everybody's mind is, do you plan on signing D.U.S.T or Detroit Urban Survival Tactics? Is there any plans to sign D.U.S.T?
You know what? He seems like a great guy. I was listening to his interview on Ariel, and I think he's handling all of this so well. I have a lot of respect for him.
Listen, we invited him on the show.
Oh, you did? Oh,
we tried.
awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
but we tried to put a roundtable panel of self-defense experts, and then I was going to offer him to demo after. We tried. We couldn't. We were unsuccessful in our venture, but we will never give up hope. I think Tom DeBlas ruined it when he offered him like $50,000 for a fight with his, and listen, I try to explain to everybody. I get it, but we don't know until we know, and who knows what he's teaching in those classes. I don't have no idea. I'd have to go take a class. I don't know what's going on there. I'm not 100% sure, but I can tell you this. Don't practice gun removal techniques. Trust me. Don't practice it. It's a one shot, I mean, what do you got up there? What do you want to say? You want to say something? Say something. Put the mic down.
Oh, man. Yeah, like you said, you don't know what he's actually teaching, right?
Yeah,
there's been some film that's come out here and there, but
is he fucking with us or not?
I can't agree more with what you said, though. He is handling it so well.
Oh my God, he's the GOAT. He's like the Tinder swindler. He's the fucking GOAT.
Here he is at the fights. The
memes are amazing, though. Is he legit though?
That's what I'm saying. I kind of wanted to speak to him and get to know him while he was in town this past, because you don't know, right? And to his defense, I've only seen all the memes so I don't know really what he's doing. And I'm trying to work on having an understanding before I cast a judgment here. But
I'd represent him tomorrow to fight Jake Paul. Tomorrow. I don't care what anyone says. You can. Oh, you're not. He's not legit. He's done a better job than you, motherfucker.
Hey, that fight would sell out.
That fight would sell out. We could probably sell out him and Jason.
You need to get the Tinder swindler on here.
I know that guy's the GOAT.
We were in Houston, and
who falls? Like we met the girls; they were on the show. But like 50, my enemies are after me. Give me 50 G's. Like
it's an ongoing joke with my wife now. She'll Venmo request me like for some money. Like my enemies are after me, and I'm like, are you serious?
Louis Vuitton.
We were going to bed, and we're just slipping the never get put on. Like I stayed up for like extra 2 hours. I'm just like,
bro. He's the GOAT.
Like, no way.
He's still free. He's still free because he did nothing. And I actually am part of the camp that says, did he do something wrong? Yes. But did he commit a crime? I mean, you get exactly
by the statute of the law. He didn't.
You ask somebody, hey, Jonathan, give me 50 G's. My enemies are like. And the girl
enough to do it, then
I agreed with the girl who robbed him of all the clothes. Like that was awesome at the end. Yeah. What I didn't, what I thought was like. Come on, like, what are you talking? You went and mortgaged your house? Like, what are we talking about here? I'd be like, dude, that's a tough weekend. Like, don't get me wrong, I have compassion, but like $500 worth of compassion. Like,
that's what I was.
Hey, I'll pay your gym membership for a few months.
Yeah,
you know,
like, what's your threshold? Like 1,000, 2,000? They'd be like, oh, I took a loan for $25,000. Like $25,000.
It was like a payday loan too. Like some of them were crazy.
I was like, oh no, don't.
But the girl who went and got the clothes, she was a fucking animal. She was like, I went in the house, I filled up like 8 luggage bags. She got smoked for like 200 and something grand, but she ended up getting some money back out of him. She just did it right back to him, and that's all you can do, right?
What was cracking me up? He's using one girl's money to take the other girl out on some extravagant trip.
He's the GOAT.
And then sending videos to the.
Tell me he's not the GOAT. Every guy would love to be him for one weekend.
But in my mind, I'm like, that's got to be so much work, like just to get all the names right.
Yeah, no fucking way. You're playing house in 10 houses.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Or she's like, yeah, he had me looking for an apartment or a house to buy. I was like, how do you keep a straight face? You're like, oh, I love that apartment, honey. Yes, put a down payment on it. Let's get it.
The guy's amazing. The best part is he's like a blue check mark guy or something. Like, that's the best part. It's unbelievable.
I just want to know like what Netflix feels like when they get this on their table. Like, hey, we got this new documentary.
It's
like,
that and the Anna Delvey one are the two best ones. Yeah, the Anna Delvey one. She's amazing too. She almost took a bank for $60 million. How do you not love that?
That one, and then Lion King. Like I remember watching Lion King. Like, how am I watching this right now? Like, who found this? Like, who literally found this? Like,
listen to everybody out there that talks shit. The Tinder swindler is the GOAT. There's no two ways about it. That guy, if you can convince. You're out on a date. Think about this, guys, for a second. I'll put every man in this position. You're out on a date with another chick, and you convince her to give you money, not just for that dinner, but for the other dinner, regardless of the circumstances that you created. You are the GOAT.
But think about it is genius, though, because he portrays himself to be so wealthy, right? All of his clothes, all of his style. So you're thinking, okay, he has the money. I mean, it's a well thought out.
It's every
scheme.
guy's dream. It's one night that you're paying, and then the rest of your life's paid for. It's every like it's like that never happens. It never happens. He created that environment, and the real question is like, is he sociopathic? Does he really believe the things he says? That's the $1 million thing.
Well,
right?
Doesn't he have like he owns a company, right? Where he's kind of like
he started like a spinoff that's like you can consult with him on business.
Yes.
So I don't know if that makes money. It may, who knows? But listen, he's the GOAT.
It was one of those things, like even when we turned the show off, I was laying in bed going, wow, like all the work that went into this, like he really thought this out tremendously.
I'm telling you.
There's no paper trail, right? Because they're signing for the loans in their name. You start thinking about it, you're like, oh my
Where it gets dicey was when they filmed him using the credit card. That's why they did the sting on him, because then they corroborated that he used a card illegally because they had the girl in on it that was like, I'm not authorizing this.
Yes.
So it's different than like, hey, go pay the bill. Here's 100%. My card. You know what I mean? What he's done is now committed a crime, and they had to have documentation of that. So that was like where they got him in the gray. But like, what's he committing?
Yeah. Like the one girl that came to his house and he's like, oh, I have to leave right now. My enemies are after I have to leave. And he like just leaves her there.
Bro, he went on a first date with a girl. He took like his ex-wife and his baby with him. Like that's fucking crazy. Like I got it like that I could just do that like right out the gate.
Yeah.
But like, here's the thing. I didn't feel bad for the girl that went to Morocco at all. I'll tell you why. Because look, if I call you, we're friends. I say, Jason, going out to Miami. We're going to hang out. We're going to go to my buddy Tony Seminot's gym at Knockout Zone. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Even if I'm like, I got the rooms. In your head, you're instantly thinking this is going to cost me a couple G's. You know what I mean? So who goes to Morocco and thinks someone else is going to pay for the entire trip? That's where you lose me. Yeah. I'm sorry. You're on the hook for something, honey.
Yeah.
Unless she sat somewhere. Yeah, unless she sat you down. Now, did she scam her when she was there? Give me the card, I'll hold the room, I use your Vogue card. Of course, that was wrong. But you thought you were going to go and it wasn't going to cost you. You're in fucking Morocco, honey.
Yeah.
I don't know what money converts to there, and I don't know how far it gets you, but I mean, did you expect her to buy the scarf? Did you, you're responsible ultimately for your decisions.
It was funny too, because backstage at UFC Houston, you could tell like it was like a topic among like we're all like laughing and talking about it. It kind of breaks the nerves, right, of the fight. But you're sitting going like, dude, how do you do that? That's amazing.
I wanted to get your thoughts before I cut you loose because we're going long. But I want to get your thoughts now, switching gears to the UFC fight that I was at when Julianna Pena managed to pull out the win against Amanda Nunes. Mm-hmm. How does that leave situations like Kayla Harrison's and things that when you look at that from the outside, is that a good thing, or did we miss out on a giant super fight potentially?
I think the answer to that's really what's going to happen in the second fight, right? Yeah. That's really going to be the telltale. If Julianna goes out and pulls it off again, well, now that fight, you're right, has lost its luster. If Amanda goes and wins,
we're right back.
We're right back where she probably has a trilogy against Julianna, which is exciting, right? People like trilogies.
Of course.
Or you got the super fight with Kayla. So now there's some opportunities there for both.
Do you think, just from the outside, and I know she's not your client, do you think eventually Kayla jumps in?
It seems like she wants to. You know, I know Ali represents her and he does a great job for her. But it seems like she wants to be in the UFC. I'm sure eventually at some point.
Disparaging other sides, just getting an outside opinion, you know?
I mean, from what it sounds like, she wants to compete against the best in the world, whether that's in Bellator, UFC, or PFL. I just think she wants to be known as the greatest. It seems like that's her sole goal. And it's a correct goal. I mean, that's awesome.
If you were advising her, would you tell her to come?
You know what? I'm not privy to how much she's making. I've heard she's making some very, very good money.
Yeah, they don't want to lose her there.
But I will say this. There's been times in our sports where athletes take a pay cut to get a certain matchup or compete against certain fighters in a different organization. We've seen this happen before. So you kind of have to balance what your goals are. Again, that goes back to the case by case of the athlete. If you want to be the greatest ever and say the quote unquote greatest ever is in a different organization, well, you're going to do what you need to do to get over there so you can take that fight. But if your goal is to, hey, I just want to make money, well, let's just go the highest bidder. Let's get paid.
Well, listen, Tinder swindler aside, what else do you watch when you're not watching fights?
Ooh, I'm a huge documentary guy. I love The Last Dance. I probably watch that like every morning. I'm a huge Jordan fan, and I love what he's built there. I like those shows on ESPN that kind of follow college programs, because I feel like a management group is a lot like a college program, right? You have to have a great culture. The older guys really set the path for the younger guys, right? Like, you know, when a fighter gets signed to the UFC on short notice, say, right? That opportunity came because the person above you got their medicals on time, got their travel on time, made weight, put on a great performance, and allowed that to continue to happen, right? It's kind of like a college, right? The juniors and seniors took care of it, left it better than they found it. So the freshmen and sophomores now have these opportunities. And I just feel like you have to have a great culture in your group. And so I try to watch like PJ Fleck at Minnesota. I love him. Like, I'm a huge PJ Fleck fan. I would love to meet him. Nick Saban at Alabama football, Coach K at Duke basketball. Yeah. You look at these programs and they're leaving legacies. Like when Coach K retires from Duke basketball, how many lives has that guy changed? Like, that's what I want. When he dies, the line at the funeral is gonna be out the damn door for people waiting to say 5 words about him. That's my goal. That if you said, hey, what do you see Iridium? If it's not that, I failed. Yeah. You know, I'd coached Saud from Fortis MMA in Dallas. He came to me, I think it was like 3 years ago when I was starting to really do good, like have a real good year. And he said, hey, man, and he's like always been one of my biggest advocates. He's like, man, you're doing great. You're crushing it. But let me move the marker for you. Having a good year, that's cool and all. You gotta own a decade. He's like, you better fuck a decade up, Jason. He's like, look at me. And I look at him. He's like, you need to go run a decade. You need to build your legacy right now and change a lot of lives. And when he said it to me, I'll be honest, John, at the time, I was just happy to see 10 years of work starting to finally pay off a little bit, right? Like,
you can pay a bill on time.
Yes, you know what I mean? Like, I was just happy for that. But he moved that marker so far for me, and I'm forever grateful for him for doing that. Yeah,
it's difficult. You got to set, when you start to seek mentorship and receive mentorship, you have to set a lot of the ego aside and understand, you know, what you are trying to build. And sometimes you need that little poke to see the bigger picture.
And he's one of the most successful coaches in the world, right? He doesn't have to care about me. He doesn't have to stop and give me that. But he took the time out of his day to sit me down and go, yo,
like
look at me.
Yeah, like these guys, I'll tell you, when I left marketing in the gun business and being a CEO, and I reached a point where, like, if I put a hat out, it has to be a great hat because I talk so much shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I have to do it right. Like, my production better be better than what anybody else has in their building. And I challenge people with that. And that's what I want them to walk in and see. And sometimes people take that as like, I'm coming at them, but you're just trying to move mile markers. Yes. I want to go in and I want to see something better than this.
Yes. 100%.
You know, and I want to be like, whoa, like
pressure's good. Pressure's earned. And that's a good thing. And I see, like, you like to put it on yourself, and that's probably why we get along.
Yeah.
So.
Hell yeah. I love it. Listen, I love having you. Hopefully you'll come back. Hopefully you'll chime in, and we could definitely value your opinion. It's definitely an insider's knowledge, if you will. Not to, listen, it's hard work this guy does, being on both sides. You know, cut him a break, cut everybody a break. You know, it's hard. You're juggling a lot of egos. I don't envy that position sometimes, but I get it. I'm used to it in here. Love having you. Thank you for coming, guys. Check out the links, everything that got shared. Special shout out to Iridium Sports Agency. Love all the fighters there. A lot of great guys, a lot of folks that have been on this show. So please, you know, go support Jason by supporting the agency. And thank you to all the sponsors. A complete list of them on the website and listed down below. I want to thank Sig Sauer, guys. Go check out Sig. Go buy a Sig. Support the brand. Pulsar, you know, all the brands. Right On Optics, Galco Leather Holsters, Rhino Metals, Secure It, and of course, Big Daddy Unlimited. Shout out to them too, and everybody else. Anything else? I missed anything? You good up there?
The 320 Max. Go to Sig and get the 320 Max.
Oh yeah, you like that, huh?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. You look like a guy who knows. All right, we're out.